All right there, everybody. The New York Times finally admits that the world is, in fact, becoming nationalist populist. That's what we'll be talking about on today's video. A number of opinion articles are being written as we speak for the New York Times that are all collectively coming to a single conclusion. The world as we know it is changing. The world political order is changing, and it is changing in ways that secular liberal globalists, both on the center left and center right, never imagined in their worst nightmares. The world order is turning nationalist, it's turning populist, and it is turning traditionalist. And the piece that I was most impressed by was written by Bret Stephens, and a huge shout out to our good friend Daryl Dow, who sent this to me. Thank you, Daryl. Bret Stephens puts forward three earth-shattering recent events in his piece. The Australian election, the India election, and this was written before the results of the European Parliament elections had come in, so he based his assessment on the nationalist populist gains that were being projected at the time. So he puts forward these three things, and he drew, again, a very fascinating conclusion. He wrote, in the past week, over 600 million Indians had cast their ballots over the course of 6 weeks in the largest democratic election in the world. It takes India just over a month to hold a national election. And according to Stephens, the big winner in the Indian election was Donald Trump. Then we had several million Australians going to the polls in another touchstone election, their national election. And the big winner there was, again, Donald Trump. Hundreds of millions of people, from his vantage point, were voting in Europe's parliamentary elections. And again, all projections showed that Trumpism would largely triumph there. Whether we go to the Philippines and their midterm elections a couple of weeks back that cemented the rule of the nationalist populist President Rodrigo Duterte, or Israel's election just several weeks back saw a surge in ultra-right Orthodox parties that gave Netanyahu his third straight term as prime minister, or the landslide election of Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil back in October of last year, or the rise of Matteo Salvini as the single most dominant political figure in Italy, or the gigantic figure of Viktor Orban in Hungary, or the rise of the Forum for Democracy in the Netherlands, and the True Finns in Finland, and on and on and on. We are, wherever we're looking, Donald Trump is winning these elections. And of course, by that, Bret Stephens is simply saying to a largely American reading audience, and a highly left-wing one at that, Stephens is simply saying that the very same issues that dominated and defined the 2016 election here in the States, the issues of borders, economy, and culture, they're all propelling nationalist populist candidates to electoral victories quite literally all over the world. He could have mentioned Shinzo Abe of Japan, or Erdogan of Turkey, or the Dream Coalition, the Republic of Georgia. I mean, heck, much of Central America has turned to the right. Most recently, El Salvador, Chile, Paraguay, Colombia. In many ways, Brazil, with Jair Bolsonaro, was just a crown jewel of this turn. And who would have thought, and again, Stephens points this out, who would have thought that the successor for Theresa May of the Tories would be someone like Boris Johnson, most likely, who Stephens calls the Trumpiest Tory. I love it, right? Boris Johnson, the Trumpiest Tory. The theme of Stephens' piece is one that we all know too well on this channel. Trump often said it on the campaign trail, right? Trump kept saying, we're going to win so much, you're going to get tired of winning. You're right. At some point, we're just going to keep winning and winning, and you're going to say, please, please stop. We can't do this anymore. We can't keep winning. And he said, sorry, nope, we're going to have to keep winning. And we're going to say, no, it's enough. Too much winning, too much winning. Trump said, sorry, no, we just have to keep winning, winning, winning over and over and over again. And Stephens writes, this is impressive. This isn't the New York Times, folks. Stephens writes, Trump could not have been more prophetic. What world are we living in? This is New York Times. Barring a major economic meltdown, Stephens surmises Trump's going to win re-election easily in 2020. And this is because Stephens recognizes that the politics of the left, climate change, open borders, minority rights, economic redistribution, it's being crushed by a renewed, well, he calls it a tribalization or a nativist sentiment. I think nativism is the term he uses. And here I think he starts to miss the larger picture. In my view, at least, he gets caught up in his own caricatures, but he sees it. He recognizes that right now the left has its only goal, the removal of Donald Trump from office. But in doing that, they're losing the bigger picture. They're failing to see what the nationalist, populist, and traditionalist right why it has been winning such impressive victories. And for Stevens, he recognizes it's because the nationalist, populist right is addressing most explicitly and directly the three major insecurities that are redefining world politics: border insecurity, economic insecurity, and cultural insecurity. He recognizes this, and for that I commend him. Now, we on this channel, we call these three insecurities post-security politics, okay? Post-security politics is driven by three major forms of insecurity that have arisen over the last few decades as a result of the anti-national, anti-cultural dynamics inherent in globalization. And in many respects, these three forms of insecurity all intertwine with one another. The nation-state historically offered its citizens three forms of security by which we could all live out a safe and meaningful life. And these three forms of security were border security, where we felt safe from, foreign invasion; economic security, where we were given a stable economy for maximum material conditions; and cultural security, where our religion, our customs, our traditions, our distinctive ways of life were protected and celebrated and revered to ensure a meaningful and collaborative life. Globalization destroys all three forms of security because globalism is transnational. It renders borders irrelevant, either through electronic money or unprecedented immigration rates. Globalism destroys economic security by virtue of what's called a global division of labor, where manufacturing and industry are relocated to third world countries, the global south, while finance is reallocated around the urban centers of the global north, leaving rural areas extremely unemployed. And finally, globalism is perhaps most infamous for killing off distinctive cultures, customs, and traditions with consumer-based culture that pushes progressive lifestyle values at the expense of traditional culture and customs. All the while, the culture ends up being eradicated by massive immigration levels. And so you can see that post-security politics forms sort of a self-contained loop where each insecurity feeds into the other. And it is the nationalist, populist, and traditionalist right that's addressing all three insecurities in a fully coherent political ideology of the new right. The political ideology of the new right centers on stringent border enforcement and migration overhaul. They want to institute some form of economic nationalism, and they want to protect the key identity markers of nation, culture, custom, and tradition for the respective populations. And that is why we're entering into a new conservative age. We're entering into a new conservative age precisely because the three forms of insecurity that are plaguing populations all over the planet by virtue of globalization are being effectively addressed and resolved by the nationalist, populist, and traditionalist right. And that's the joy that we have every single day on this channel. With every passing election or current event, we've analyzed the victories of the right with this very analysis. We're understanding current events in light of conservative trends. And it's nice to see other media outlets like the New York Times catching up to us. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure to download my latest book on the Yellow Vest Uprising free for just a few more days at the link below. And while you're at it, check out some of our new merchandise in the links below, celebrating all things nationalist, populist, traditions like coffee mugs and t-shirts and the like. And please click on either our Patreon subscribes to our PayPal links below and consider becoming a monthly supporter of this channel and help us to continue to analyze current events in light of super awesome conservative trends so that you can live in the present in light of even better things to come. God bless.